Welcome, welcome. This is My Favorite Mortgage Podcast. I'm Jaimie Booth, a licensed loan officer in Arizona and Texas. This is My Favorite Mortgage Podcast, a behind the curtains look at the good, the bad, the ugly, the nail biting, and also guests that can help give insight and direction during this fun journey of home ownership. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I have a guest here today that I've been trying for months to get on, and we've done many transactions, and almost every time I'm like, when are you going to come on?
Yeah.
So welcome, Chris Cummings.
You finally got me.
Yes, I did.
I wanted to do podcast stuff for a long time. I've thought about maybe someday having one of my own where I talk about, real estate and some of my own interests. But this is my first time on a podcast, so I'm excited, a little bit nervous. But yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, you finally got me on.
I did. And it was basically like, I'm going to put you on my calendar.
Right.
Send you the invite.
Twisted my arm a little bit.
And you're not going to deny this invite. So it worked. And I'm really grateful you're here because I absolutely enjoy working with you on so many levels, not only your professionalism, but your way that you help clients, and you genuinely care. And it's, I like to say that there's 1,000 realtors that I work with, but that's not the truth. I work with a small select group who are full-time, who do this as a profession, that know their shit. And I know that when we get into contract, it's going to be memorable. And the ones that we want to close, I kind of say that because we're talking offline on a memorable transaction. Yeah. But before we do that, I do like to play some games.
Okay.
And I have some games called Would You Rather.
Okay.
But before we do that, this is a hot topic.
Oh gosh.
And I touched on it with a previous guest, and we were talking about girl math.
Oh no.
So I know.
Yeah, see, you're big on TikTok, and me, I just can't get behind it. I'm technically a millennial. I'm a younger millennial, but TikTok is not one that I.
Well, it's on Instagram Reels too.
Yeah, that's true. It is. I have seen it on Instagram a couple times, but which
I always say is TikTok from 3 months ago.
Yes, yeah. So I'll send every once in a while. I'll send my girlfriend a reel, and she'll say, I saw that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Nice try. Maybe next time.
Right. So. Or I laughed the first time I saw
it. Right.
So girl math works, and it's surprising to me because I've been doing it for my whole adult life of managing my own money on how girl math works. And we were laughing about things like when I load up my Starbucks app. And when I go for the next few weeks, I get coffee, I scan my app. It's free. So in my head, it's free, and it's something that I've always done. So I started thinking about mortgage girl math. Right?
I like where this is going.
Right? So tell me if this makes sense to boy math. Okay, this is mortgage girl math. If I have a client pay off debt, they can now borrow more money.
Right.
And that's mortgage girl math because we're eliminating this debt and I'm going to lend them more money.
Give them debt in a different place.
Yes.
Everybody wants a bigger, nicer house.
Right.
To an extent, you don't want to be house poor.
Right. Or actually, I've got a client that I'm helping that has a great big house, and she's like with landscaping and having a house cleaner, and she's an empty nester. She's like, I need something smaller.
Yeah.
If you put debt in someone else's name, you've made money.
Right.
More money a month, and so I can lend you more.
Right.
So that's good. So this is adding up.
So it's interesting because when I bought my house 2 years ago, I paid off some debt.
Right.
Before I closed in order to increase my purchasing power. So yeah, it tracks. It makes sense.
It makes sense.
That's an example of girl math that I can get behind.
Okay. Yes.
Obviously, we don't want to put people in a position, like I said, where they're house poor.
Right.
But if that extra couple $100 a month
$200-300
is enough to get you who knows, maybe it's a hot house and there's a bidding war, gives you the leverage you need to make that offer attractive to a seller, I'm all for that. And if you're comfortable with that and that fits in your budget, absolutely. That's a good use of girl math.
Okay. And I was just literally thinking of these. Okay.
And I told you before, off camera, that I don't condone or support girl math, and I'll be the first to say that. But that one,
makes sense.
You did good with that one.
Okay, then I have a few more. Okay. The earnest money at closing is free at the end. The earnest money is free money at the end.
I don't know if I agree with that one as much.
So we've got our closing disclosure.
Well, I understand why you're saying that and why it's girl math.
Yeah.
Because it's already gone.
Already
You're never
gone.
going to see it again.
Right.
But in my head, I know I deposited that check
Oh, to me, it's free.
30 days ago.
No, it's
That's
free.
the way I would look at it. So, but yeah, girl math versus boy math. So I get it. I understand that it is. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
But
Earnest money is free.
Don't condone or support that one.
I'm going to break him.
You do not get my endorsement.
Okay, an MCC. We talked about it a few weeks ago. It's a mortgage credit certificate, and it's a tax benefit at the end of the year. So in mortgage, I could use that MCC as a raise and give them credit for an extra $167 a month. So an MCC is a raise in your income.
Okay.
That's
I
girl
can
math.
see that.
Yep.
That makes a little bit of sense. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting closer.
I got that's all I had. Like I
Oh.
started running through. I'm like, an MCC is a raise.
Well, you're not going to sell me on the free coffee, but you went 2 out of 3 on the.
Okay. Well,
on the
what about the
mortgage girl
free
math.
shipping? I buy my dog's food at Chewy.com, and to get to free shipping, I need to spend
$99
Right.
yeah.
And so I'm right there. So I put in a couple toys
Yeah.
and a treat. So all those items to get to the free shipping are free.
So that's a contentious one because the shipping is normally what, $8-10.
So I put in like a $2 toy.
But
and
if
a couple
let's say the threshold is $99 and the food's $59, you got to spend $40 more to get the $10.
yeah.
Then it's $30 that you wouldn't have spent.
No, it's free items.
No endorsement on that
Okay,
one.
all right. Well, you know what?
It was a
Mortgage
valiant
girl
effort.
math was
Yes, you did good with that one.
Okay,
The
all
earnest
right.
money, I
it's free money.
I don't agree with that one, but I understand.
Yes. Okay, so that was a little bit just really kind of quick because
Yeah.
I had some would you rathers.
Yeah,
But this girl
absolutely.
math thing is like really,
Would you rather is like a staple of every millennial's childhood, I feel like.
yeah.
We did that,
Even in
I remember,
elementary
I
school.
remember as kids, at sleepovers, it was truth or dare, would you rather. I grew up in a good Christian household, so not a lot of spin the bottle, or those kind of games. But truth
No.
or dare, would you rather? Yeah, I remember.
What's the other one?
As a kid.
7 minutes and heaven.
Oh yeah,
or
nope.
something.
Good Christian household never did
No,
that either.
no.
Nope.
And I'm Gen X, so would you rather's came out during my drinking time.
Yeah.
All right, so would you rather, Chris, get caught in a surprise rainstorm during an outdoor open house or have to navigate the labyrinth of a hoarder's home?
That's a tough one.
Like our
Before you
monsoon.
said open house, I was 100% sold on the rainstorm because
Okay.
I love rain. That's my favorite part about living in Arizona is the monsoon season.
Yeah, I love it too.
So I was fully sold until you said open house. That's when it got a little tricky, but
'Cause no one comes.
right, exactly.
Nobody
and
comes.
then you have to go out and get your signs in the rain and all that kind of stuff. But
Or a
I
hoarder's
would
house.
still pick that over the hoarder's house.
Yeah. I
Something
think I
about
would too.
I feel like I'm very sensitive to touch and smell and things, and I've been in houses, showing
Yeah.
houses or listing appointments or whatever, and I feel like I need a shower coming out of them. I've been there, and I'd like to avoid that as much as
smell.
possible. Yeah, it feels like it clings to you, and it doesn't leave. So yeah, I would pick the rain over the hoarder house, definitely.
Gotcha. I think I would too.
Yeah.
That's
an easy one.
I love monsoon season. I will sit outside and watch it.
I remember as a kid, I used to sit on the back patio, and because I lived in Phoenix, and we were North Valley, and not a lot of light up there, light pollution. So, I mean, we had kind of like an overlooking view of the whole valley almost.
Nice.
So you get this big panoramic, all the lightning, and so that's one of my favorite memories from my childhood is watching the monsoons.
Yeah. Because they're like
me and my brother and my mom and my dad. Yeah. Yeah. And you get a burst of lightning and it just lights up the whole sky.
Yeah.
It was such a cool thing as a kid.
You know what I used to love during the monsoon? When we would lose electricity.
Really?
I thought that was so cool as a kid, and we'd get out the candles, and it was like an exciting time. Like, I wanted to lose electricity during the monsoon. Yeah.
Wow. That's funny. I've never heard anyone say that.
Oh, I loved it. In fact, I probably still secretly do, because if it gets really bad, I go and light candles, just in case. And the house smells great, not like a hoarder's house. Yeah. Okay, would you rather, Chris, have a client that only communicates in emojis or insists on doing everything handwritten? Listing agreement, disclosures, the whole contract, everything is handwritten. Or someone who only communicates in emojis.
So I think we said this off camera as well. Younger millennial, but I don't, fully subscribe to the technology and social media and things. So I think the emoji thing would be harder for me.
Yeah.
Doing everything on paper, I think I could do that because you do all your listing docs at once. So you have your listing contract, you can do your property disclosure right there. You can do your purchase contract, and all addendums that you have at that point right there. So that's really, to me, that's only 3 or 4 appointments.
Chris still likes to fax.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I do almost everything digitally. The emojis is tough for me because
I don't know how to read.
Some of them are so kind of subjective. They could go either way. Yeah. You don't know. Is this a happy face? Is this a sad face? Yeah. Is this angry? Maybe if we could like set up a bank of emojis they could use so that I know what the meanings are. Yeah,
like an encryption.
Right, you can't use these ones, but you can use these. Yeah, maybe if we could do that, I'd maybe pick the emojis. But
a key bank on what they mean.
I don't have an issue with doing things analog or on paper.
No, see, I think you're a Gen X. You just don't know it. You were born too late.
So people have said that. But,
yeah.
I'm kind of a purist when it comes to things. Kind of a snob about doing things the old-fashioned way sometimes. So,
hey, you know what? I think I can still give change without a calculator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And do things analog.
Right.
I can drive a stick shift.
Right. My car downstairs is stick. Every car I've ever driven has been stick. That's one that I'm very passionate about. I just think it's more fun. Yeah. I think you have more. You're more in tune with the driving experience, and I'm a big car guy.
I do too. So I wonder how many people actually. Do you know how to drive a stick shift? No. So
a few years ago, I saw a statistic. It's less than 10% of the population.
Really?
Yeah.
I had to learn how to drive on a stick shift.
Yep.
In this country?
Yeah. Here?
Yeah, in the U.S., it's less than 10%. I think Europe and
probably.
Like South America is a lot higher.
Yeah.
I don't know about Asia, but.
Huh. I wonder what. I'm going to go ask Andy and everyone in the office. Because I just do it. It's like riding a bike. Once you know how to drive a stick shift, you always know how to drive a stick shift. Huh.
We had, at one point at my house, we had my car, my girlfriend's car, and then I had a second car. All of our cars were stick. So when in our drinking days, if we went to someone's house, we're driving, no one's going to be able to get us home. So we're staying there.
I wonder how many people have forgotten the term "pop the clutch."
Yeah.
Have you heard of that one? Pop the clutch? No.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a totally different world. Like I said, only 10%
you're
of
a Gen Xer. You were just born too late.
Well. we can talk about that at length.
I'm going to have to teach you what, you're going to have to go Google what pop the clutch means. Who would have thought? Oh my gosh. Showing my age, guys. All right. So last one on, would you rather explain the benefits of a tiny house to a client who can't imagine living in anything smaller than a mansion, or try to sell a house with a bizarre themed room, like a jungle room or I don't even want to write. Read what she wrote.
Uh-oh. No, you got to show me now.
Oh, sex theme room.
Okay.
Would you rather sell that house or try to convince someone to buy a tiny house?
I think selling the house with the themed room is a little bit easier because you can always change that.
Oh, yeah.
You can, you can get rid of the sex dungeon.
That's funny.
You can get rid of the rainforest trees and the lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
Carpet.
But the tiny house, that's that's actually a good conversation point. I think the idea of a tiny house is great. I think being able to minimize your footprint and get something that suits your needs and is much more affordable than maybe a more traditional or conventional home.
Right.
If that works for people, absolutely, I'm all for that. But I do think that, there's on the south side, I don't remember the cross streets, there's like a tiny home development almost going up.
Interesting.
There's different places where they're trying to make that the norm, it seems like.
I've seen videos on those.
And I don't know if I agree with that approach where we try to make that the norm. If that's right for a certain person's lifestyle.
Just an alternative.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
An affordable
exactly.
alternative.
But it seems like, one of the ways people are trying to combat rising interest rates and inflated prices is we'll just buy a smaller house but I mean, you look at those, some of them are going $150,000,
Shrinkflation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
20 years ago, $150,000 would have got you, a very
nice house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's absolutely a place for that. Someone who wants a mansion trying to buy a tiny home, I think, is going to be a lot more difficult.
That's a hard sell.
Yeah. So I can walk you through and show you what the room's going to look like without the sex dungeon, and we can make that work. I'll come in and help do the demo.
There you go. He's got a lot of connections.
There you go.
So thanks again to Chris Cummings. He's a licensed realtor in Southern Arizona. You moved down here from the Prescott Valley.
Flagstaff. Yes. Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't know when they think of Arizona. They think of Tucson and how hot it is and 115 degrees with cactus. But Arizona has a northern part where it snows and people ski and it's cold. And you don't have saguaro cactuses.
Right.
So you came down from Flagstaff. What was that, about a year and a half ago?
So 2 years ago in July. So I was born and raised in Phoenix. I went to NAU, so I moved to Flagstaff to go to college. I lived there for a few years after I graduated. I actually got started in real estate up there, working Realty One Group with Daniel Collins. We're still in contact today.
Good guy.
Probably not as often as
when you
him or I would like.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the way things go. You get busy, so we try to stay in touch. But and he helps me with some of my business stuff too. So, but yeah, I lived there for 7 or so years. It's really green. A lot of people,
pine
this
trees
is Arizona.
And stuff. Yeah.
So 7,000 feet elevation when you're in town. And then you go to the ski resort on Mount Humphreys, and I believe at the top, the highest you can go on the lifts is like just under 11,000, I think.
Wow.
So it's a big shock.
Right.
Especially, it's funny. We were talking about drinking days. As a college kid, the elevation when you drink hits you a little bit harder.
Does it
So
really?
it does. So that's another thing that you have to be conscious of if you go up there and you want to. Like 4th of July weekend to beat the heat or whatever.
Right.
Just be careful. Maybe cut a couple beers off your consumption.
That would explain my Denver trip a lot.
Yeah. Denver's 5,500 feet, I think. So,
yeah.
Yeah, same effects.
And of course, you have one of the 7 wonders in
the Grand
Flagstaff.
Canyon.
The Grand Canyon.
It was about, I want to say it's hour and a half or so to the park from Flagstaff, so you can go down the 40, and then I think it's the 64 up to Williams, or you can kind of take the back road that goes towards Snowbowl, and you can get a great view of the peaks.
Yeah,
so,
It's funny you mentioned a town, Williams. That's where my parents are from.
Really?
My parents got married in Williams. Yeah.
Small
like
world.
Nobody talks about Williams, Arizona.
Yeah.
And that's where my grandfather, my uncle, everyone lived there.
Yeah, it's a population of what, 5,000-7,000 people. So it's a small town. It's rural. It has a little cutesy downtown.
Yep.
With some shops and things, but for the most part, it's rural. I think there's one golf course there that's relatively new, but otherwise it's people are living spread out and kind of a mix between off the grid and you're 30 minutes 45 minutes from civilization. So
that's so funny.
It's kind of that middle ground for people.
Haven't heard that town name in a long time.
I actually sold a new build manufactured homes in Williams for a little bit. Pine Trails right off the 40. So
my grandparents lived there in a manufactured home for all my childhood. So, interesting. Well, I loved hearing about that. It kind of just made me reminisce for a minute.
Nostalgic.
So thank you. Yeah. So we here on My Favorite Mortgage podcast like to talk about memorable transactions. So we kind of did a little preemptive just conversation about a transaction, and I highly encourage it because it's something that people need to hear, and just understand that who you work with absolutely matters. And when you get the, what was the word, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, run away. Run away from whoever is telling you that.
Right.
So, Chris, would you mind sharing this memorable transaction?
Yes. Well, I'll kind of preface, I don't think a lot of realtors talk about the fact that almost every transaction is memorable. Every transaction has its unique thing that, you learn something, it makes you scratch your head, whatever it is. So I think a lot of people think it's, simple and easy, but there's always something new to learn. And this was an example for me. I learned a lot in this transaction. Right. And you weren't involved in this one, but I came to you for advice.
Yeah.
So essentially, I was representing the seller. I was the listing agent, and the property was occupied by a tenant. The tenants were on a month-to-month lease, and the way the owner/landlord had written the lease was a 60-day notice to vacate.
Okay.
So, anyone who came in, if they wanted to occupy the property, they had to give a 60-day notice. The buyer used an FHA loan, and I think it was a 60-day minimum. They had to occupy within 60 days of close of escrow.
FHA has you sign
as a primary.
Right. An intent to occupy, and you sign that. That's a legal document as part of a mortgage application that is from a federally insured entity. So it's a legal document that you sign.
Yes.
You're going to occupy it.
So we won't go too much into all the details, but essentially what happened, the loan officer told me to have the owner/landlord write a notice to vacate prior to close of escrow. So to have the current owner write the notice to vacate for 60 days or less. And essentially that would then forego that 60-day period for the or put the buyer within that 60-day period, so they wouldn't have to do it after close and then be outside of that 60-day window.
Okay.
So
now, was this transaction always going to be a primary residence?
That's a good point. We should take that back a little bit. So initially, when I received the offer, we were under the impression, based on the conversation I had with the buyer's agent and the way the offer was structured, that it was an investment property. And I was told, because this was a big deal for the sake of the transaction, that the tenants would be able to stay. That was a big deal for the seller.
Well, the seller genuinely cared about.
Right.
These tenants had paid their rent. They were great tenants. They didn't want to displace.
Put them on the street.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Some like friends at that point, because they had been renting for a long time. Yeah. So that was a big kind of conversation point that we had at the beginning. Myself, I was under the impression that it was an investment property. The tenants were going to be able to stay. And it was structured in a way, it was a conventional loan, I'm pretty sure, on the pre-qual, if I remember correctly. So there were no flags that it was, going to be anything other than an investment property. Right.
And then we find out that the buyer has to switch to an FHA loan. Other things happened that weren't communicated in a timely manner that led to them not being able to qualify for
this conventional investment home.
Correct, yeah. So we get to a point where they have to switch it to FHA as a primary, and the loan officer told me to write the notices to vacate, and essentially the words he used were post them on the door if they or if they never get delivered, or if they get blown away in the wind, or whatever it is, who knows? It was kind of like, we'll do what we have to do to make it work.
Interesting.
So it was, I was fully on board with, okay, if that's what we have to do is write the notice to vacate and deliver it to the tenants, we will do that. We don't want to do that. The seller's not going to be happy about that. But as soon as that, like you said, that nudge, nudge, wink, wink came into play, where who knows what happens to those notices, then it was, alarm bells and the wheels started turning, like, they're purchasing this as a primary, but they don't intend to occupy.
No. Because
they want us to fake deliver.
Yeah, that's just shameful.
The notices to vacate.
That is fraud written all over it.
Absolutely. So I called my broker, had a conversation with my broker, and I told him, here's what's going on. He said, no, we're not doing that.
Right. Good for him.
You are, you are on the hook. If that's what you do, you are on the hook for that. You're going to have the full weight of the federal government, the FBI, with an unlimited budget that doesn't like to lose money.
Good point.
Coming after you.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I need.
Yeah.
I don't need those
problems. It's
problems.
so not worth it in the long run. For even if this was a $500,000 transaction, like you said, the mortgage fraud is investigated by the FBI. This is no joke.
And beyond that, it's just not the way I aim to build my business. Is by doing things that essentially it was, how would they ever know? Yeah. How would they find out? And I don't want to leave any gray area.
No.
You're not going to build positive relationships. You're not going to, if you're not doing the right thing, you're not in it for the long term, because you're going to get caught up in something at some point. You hear all the stories about people who do shady things and make a bunch of money and, get a slap on the wrist and whatever. But I just don't think that's the way to build a business.
No, I don't want to test fate like that.
Right.
It's just not worth it.
Well, and then it becomes, if you're going to bend the rules for this situation, what's to stop you from, committing fair housing violations, or, like at that point, the brakes are off.
Right.
And
it's
just not. It's a slippery slope.
Trust.
It's a slippery slope. So, that's a little bit of insight into the time I was asked to help commit mortgage fraud by a loan officer. And it was a whirlwind.
I remember
absolutely
the phone
blew
call.
my mind.
You were definitely unsettled, and your instincts were right on the dot. And I think when you called me, it was just kind of to reaffirm what your instincts were. And, there was no way that switching it and having the contract structured in this pre-approval geared this way, and then switching it, and then having, the sellers who were very adamant they did not want to displace. Otherwise, you would have taken a different offer.
Right.
And time went past, and to be able to ask you and the seller to do these things, your instincts were right on the dot. And I'm so glad that you reached out and you talked to your broker, and it was like, this is not worth it. So occupancy fraud, if I'm going to just kind of put my
it's a great teaching point.
It really is. It's so easily detected, and it's one of the easiest ways to get in trouble on a mortgage is occupancy. There's only 3 types of occupancy. You're either going to put your head in that house, you're going to rent it out, or you're going to use it as a vacation / summer / lake house home. That's your second home.
Right.
You know what you do with that in the other half of the year, Airbnb, that's fine. But there's only 3. You're going to rest your head there, or you're not, or you're only going to do it half the time. And if you as a buyer are marking that I am going to rest my head there, you better go rest your head there, because that is so easily detected if you're not. And because it's so easily detected, it's easily to prosecute. And they don't have to do much work. And like you touched on, they have an endless budget. So just don't do it. Right. It's not worth the 1% rate discount, or, if you're really going to use it as an investment home, don't tempt fate. Don't mess with it.
Right.
Because it's easily caught and very actively investigated. I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And even if I get an inkling, I know, because I've been doing this long enough, I know how to structure a question to actually get the truth out.
Right.
And, just do it the right way and you'll have no problem. If you don't want to do it my way, there is another loan officer out there that will probably do it, but I'm not going to take that risk.
Yeah. And we've had that conversation before with other scenarios too. I think there's a lot of value in that. Sticking to your principles and saying, this is the way I do business, this is the right way to do it. And if you don't like that, then you can find someone else.
Right.
We had a conversation with a client that I tried to refer to you, where they didn't like the way you were doing things, and maybe didn't treat you the best way, and it ended up working out where neither of us worked with them.
No.
And I think that that's better for us
at
the end of the day, because we don't want to go through a transaction where we're sacrificing our principles.
Right.
We're not necessarily doing things the right way or the way they should be done, just to make a sale. That's not the type of people we are. I'd rather not sell you a house. I'd rather talk you out of one than into one.
I think that's. Yeah, I know who you're referencing, and I think that at the end of the day, we dodged a bullet.
Yes.
When your spidey senses were going off.
That was big money for both of us. That was potentially close to $2 million in sales volume.
Sales, yeah.
So that's nothing to slouch at.
No.
But was it worth compromising our principles and
absolutely not.
Potentially opening ourselves up for a little more trouble down the line?
And that, folks, is why I work with Chris, is because our values align. We, it's just karma. It really is. And when we had to say, this just isn't for me, it's a tough pill to swallow, because you're like, we're commission only, and that would have been a great paycheck. And this is a hard market, and man, it was tough, but the bullet we dodged.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and you kind of hit the nail on the head with values aligning, right? You have to, in this world, not just real estate, but in general, you have to find people who, not make it an echo chamber, but have a similar worldview and outlook that push you to be the best version of yourself every day and every transaction or whatever it is. So you've been great about that. You help me learn every time we do a transaction. You help me learn something new.
And I don't even mind, like, if it's not even my deal. Of course I'm going to help you.
Yeah. So that's one of the most important things about our relationship, I think, is I always know you're going to go to bat for me, because you look at things the same way.
You're literally going to make me cry right now. Wow, thank you. This is why I've been wanting him on. You are hands down. You're a man amongst men.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much to Chris. We could go on for transaction after transaction.
I mean, just this year,
But
Nothing's ever easy, but this year especially.
There's been some weird stuff, and like I looked at the rates today, and I don't even know anymore.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people, ignore that number.
Yeah.
I had a buyer a long time ago that was very caught up on that specific number, but their monthly payment was well within the range they'd set for themselves.
Yep.
Yes, over the life of the loan, you could potentially pay a little bit more.
But that's 30 years, and I think I touched on this.
Nobody stays in a house that well.
They
People
don't keep
used
their,
to, but they don't anymore.
Yeah.
And you refi.
You refi. No
So you're
one
not
has
gonna-
their mortgage for 30 years exact. Nobody.
Right.
In fact, I think I posted a TikTok, and someone said, I found that person one time in their entire career. This was a fellow loan officer.
Well, and if you have a 299 in your dream house, I wouldn't blame you for keeping that for 30 years.
Yeah, but we never had that before. So, all right. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I know you're a busy guy, and I just wanted to, I promised you a short podcast. So thank you so much, Chris, for coming on. We do like to finish out with some dad jokes.
Oh,
but
gosh.
I just want to throw in one thing, because we did this before we started recording, and I wish I had it recorded, is your dadisms.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. So what are...
Let me see if I can remember
two
them.
of your favorite dadisms?
Let's see if I can remember the ones I said to you. We've had such great conversation in between that they've kind of slipped my mind.
No, it was.
This isn't one that I said.
Okay.
But this is one that my dad taught me
Okay.
growing up that still, holds true, and I try to, sounds kind of corny, but live my life by this.
Okay. Let's hear
Every person you meet can teach you something about something.
it. Oh.
Everybody has their own experiences and knowledge, and to discount that is a disservice to you as a person. You never know what someone else has been through, so treat them as you would want to be treated. But everybody can teach you something.
I like that one.
Yeah. So there's one. What was the other one?
Fabio, what was the one that we were? What did we?
I
say?
can't remember.
Oh
it.
my God, I can't either. His dadisms.
It was a good one too.
I know. Damn it. Should have wrote it down. I just wrote, what's your favorite radish? Because it auto-checked from dadisms to radish.
I'll think of it.
Well,
Or maybe when I'm laying in bed at 2 a.m. it'll pop into my head.
you could text me then.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a few dad jokes before.
Okay.
What happens when you touch Dwayne Johnson's butt?
I've never heard this one before.
You hit rock bottom.
Okay. That's a good one.
What do you call a fish with no eyes?
Shh.
Good job. That's it. Fish. 6:30 is the best time on the clock, hands down.
Yeah, because they're both at the 6.
Rest in peace, boiling water. You will be missed.
Mist because it evaporates.
There we go.
Good one. Good ones. Those were good.
Thank you, Andy, for those. I believe that those were some TikToks that there's two guys that are sitting at a lake. I think one's a baseball coach, and they always kind of do these things, and they're trying not to laugh. But I always laugh.
So we talked about it off camera. I like your idea of the water in the mouth, but I don't want to put you through the rest of your day with my slobber all over you.
I did. I'm like, let's see if he can keep water in his mouth while I tell him these. But anyway, we are on all live streaming. Not live streaming. What am I trying to say? We are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can follow us on our YouTube channel where you get the full podcast. We also are streaming, that's the word, on Amazon Music, Spotify.
Yep.
I think we have to still work on the iHeartRadio one, but anywhere that you can find podcasts, we are on. So please like us, rate us, give us some feedback. If you have any mortgage questions, if you want to work with either Chris or I, reach out at myfavemortgage@gmail.com, and we will be happy to connect you and get you pre-approved for this fabulous journey of homeownership. And thanks again for Chris. We will see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.